Hello, everyone. My name is Carissa, and today I'll be lecturing on architect Kazuyo Sejima. Specifically, I'll be focusing on her life, education, and influences. In this lecture, we will cover her architectural approach by examining 3 built cases from her architectural production. And lastly, we'll be reflecting on the various innovations that Kazuyo Sejima brings to the Western canon. For a brief introduction to Kazuyo Sejima, she is a Japanese architect born in 1956. She graduated from Japan Women's University in 1979 and went on to complete her master's degree in architecture in 1981. In the same year, she began working with the architecture firm Toyo Ito and Associates until 1987. After apprenticing with Toyo Ito, Sejima established Kazuyo Sejima and Associates in 1987. In 1995, Kazuyo Sejima and Ryu Nishizawa founded the Tokyo-based firm Sana, an acronym for Sejima and Nishizawa and Associates. In 2010, she was awarded the Pritzker Prize together with Ryu Nishizawa. Sejima's work tends to incorporate materials such as glass or slick surfaces like marble. Her buildings mainly display an arrangement of curves within the architecture of the building as well as on the surface. Kazuyo successfully combines the building with the surrounding area, and glass is used quite often in her work to allow natural light to enter a space. Sejima believes creating a fluid transition between interior and exterior is important, as it allows a person to look at the outdoors while also looking at themselves and the reflections the outside world creates on the inside of the building. Sejima also intentionally overturns outmoded stereotypical housing models as they are based on assumptions instead of reality. These assumptions include housing models that illustrate the proper living condition for a nuclear family. Her idea is not to initiate a complete rejection to tradition, but rather to challenge the conventional process of design. Instead of unconsciously applying assumptions to a design, she tries to confront them consciously as best she can. Sejima thinks it is impossible to create a building completely based on a fictional idea or theory of what something should be. Sejima redefines the design process as process designs. Processes are documented, then the accumulation of design operations are taken into account rather than gradually refined into a single design idea in the final stage. During the design process of Hokusai Museum in Sumida Ward, Tokyo, a sequence of scale models were produced for the schematic design phase. Over the course of 21 proposal production days, materials and design were hashed out and justified. A quote from Sejima states that architecture is how people meet in space, and this seems to be a very central theme in all of her work, whether it be community, residential, or public architecture. The first building we'll be focusing on is the Rolex Learning Center in Lausanne, Switzerland. This building really seems to inhabit the spirit of connection between the interior and exterior. Glass is liberally used to visually connect the site and the building, but probably the most compelling and noticeable connections are at the points where the building is pulled up to welcome visitors into the center. The cutouts placed strategically throughout the building allow for plenty of natural light to filter through. And the building features multiple programs such as a multimedia library, multi-purpose hall, cafe, bar, career center, and center for digital education that are all somehow connected to the outside. The next project we'll be focusing on are the Saijo townhouses in Tokyo, Japan. The high population density in Tokyo is a large factor in the collective housing projects developed throughout the outskirts of the city. These housing projects usually result in stacked apartment buildings that have little to do with a traditional Japanese house. The Seijo houses reflect instead a spatial structure where the dwellings are related, thus blurring the boundaries between every apartment through courtyards and interior gardens, but without letting the complex lose its unified image. Each one of the 14 apartments in the community is different. The living spaces are distributed in 20 small prismatic buildings of first, second, or third levels, connected by light wells in the underground floor, by gardens at the ground level, and by terraces and footbridges in the upper levels. The control of scale of the volumes and of the intermediate spaces between them creates a sense of privacy and belonging, while the windows, arranged to never face each other, guarantee privacy. The complex is more reminiscent of the traditional urban fabric of Japan rather than the new constructions in Tokyo. The last project we'll be talking about is the Shibara House in Tokyo, Japan. At first glance, the Shibara House appears as a tall, rectangular white box. A closer look reveals 3 terraces of different sizes and footprints, masked by stretched metal mesh. Glass panes screen the rest of the building, resulting in the reflecting semi-transparency of the exterior. The rectangular outer contour disguises the fact that the building consists of a pile of various shapes of concrete decks. The house is chock full of spatial diversity, with ceilings of varying heights and levels that overlap with the next, causing a sensation of flow between the floors. Staircases curve throughout the building so that circulation is visible and a main theme of the house. Almost every floor is visually accessible from another, providing a sense of interconnectivity through the whole house. The south-facing double-height first floor space is publicly accessible from the street. It contains tables for working or reading and a coffee station. The second and third floors are lounge areas appropriable for various purposes, such as meetings and cultural events, and with access to 2 terraces. Rounded glass walls divide spaces into smaller sections. Offices are on the 4th floor, while the corner, quote-unquote, bird room on the 5th floor has a commanding view of the surrounding neighborhood. Shibara House is framed and structured by 10 load-bearing posts at the facades, around the facades, resulting in a square 14 by 14 meter footprint divisible into 9 equal squares. Hence, the building may be interpreted as a response to the famous 9-square grid exercise. The exercise was invented by architect John Hajduk in the 1950s and subsequently used at schools of architecture worldwide. The question is how to spatially divide a square, subdivided into 9 smaller squares. Sejima offers 7 elegant solutions, curvaceous yet simple. Kazuyo has created an incredible number of projects throughout her career, and each of them embodies a part of her design philosophy. She designs in a very clean and simple modernist way, preserving the aesthetic of her buildings and maintaining a functionality in all of her designs. And that's the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you for listening. Bye.